we're talking about economics in the United States right now, we have to talk about the fact that Wall Street and what happens in the stock market does not reflect what is happening in the lives of everyday people who, as you said, longer lines at shelters and food pantries than we have seen in decades. We have Americans who are out of work and don't know how they're going to put food on their table going into next year. We have businesses that are closing down in terms of their size and scope, and kids who can't go to school, and therefore their parents don't know what to do with a kid who's stuck at home all day long having to do distance learning via Zoom. We have enormous problems on one side, and yet we have a stock market that's going up. And where are we really seeing the growth in the stock market? It's in tech companies. Tech companies are doing extremely well. Companies that are e-commerce like Amazon. Amazon has done extremely well during this time. But because one or two companies does extremely well and everyone wants to buy into these FANG stocks and they're so excited about them, does not reflect the fact that you have so many workers who are hurting and struggling. And this has been the disconnect that's been taking place really for decades in this country. A stock market that continues to climb to new highs and a population that is increasingly not just out of work, but unable to find gainful, meaningful employment for themselves and for the next generation on their way up. That those economic shutdowns, again, globally, may have doubled global poverty. Now think about that for a minute. That economic shutdowns around the world may have doubled global poverty. Simultaneously, we know the 12 richest men in the world actually increased their wealth by about 200% over the course of this year. So we don't just have a wealth gap. We don't just have an inequality here. We have a growing gap, a widening gap between those who are the wealthiest, most powerful people in society and those who are just trying to take care of their families. And we're also talking about, Jesse, here, when I mentioned those numbers about, seeing that doubling of global poverty, that's not a problem for 1 year. That's not a problem for 2 or 3 years. That is a generational problem being created by the situation we're in. While again, we're seeing some very wealthy, very influential people only continuing to grow their wealth during this time. It's why the system, I think, is so clearly broken, not just in the United States, but globally.